Good morning, Canadian Yarn Hoard. My name is Alyssa, and today we're going to be making this duster. It is a very nice duster. The problem is I do not like it in the cotton yarn. It feels a little too bulky. I don't like wearing it, so I am going to be making it in thinner yarn, smaller yarn. I'm going to be using this shimmer shawl. I'm going to show it a little bit better when you're in the overhead cam. I'll do all that. But this was Bernat cotton. If you are interested, I can give you the dimensions in it. It's just going to be smaller. Like, you don't want to use as many as I'm going to use for the shimmer shawl yarn. So I'm going to move you over to the overhead cam and we'll get started. So I do really like this stitch. It is a very nice stitch. It is called the bubble stitch. Just right there. I'm going to be using, as I said, this shimmer shawl yarn. It is a light yarn, so it is a 3. They do recommend a 3.75 millimeter needle and a 3 millimeter hook. I am going to be using my 4.5s because I do want just a little bit of extra there. I have already made one of the pockets because I always start with pockets. So I'm going to start showing you the pattern with the pockets first, and then we're going to move on to the body of the duster. So to start that, you're going to want to cast on 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 14, 15, 19 stitches, and I'm going to use a 4 millimeter hook, as you can see, and I'm just going to cast on 19 stitches with my crochet hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and the 19th one always goes over. So now that I have that done, what you're going to do is you're going to start this one with a purl row. So you want to purl first for 1 row, and you're just going to purl the whole way. The main bulk of this pattern is basically stocking stitch for 5 rows, and the 6th row you do something a little different. I do absolutely love this knitted pattern. From the moment I learned it, it's become my favorite pattern. It's very easy to do. It's a really simple pattern that you can just mindlessly do for 5 rows. You mindless out watch your TV show, and then 1 row you have to focus on. And it's a really textured. Normally, I do like it with a thinner yarn. A thinner yarn, it doesn't feel anywhere near as bulky. It's not as heavy. I think it'll be a nice light summer duster. So your next row is going to be knit. You're going to knit purl for 5 rows. And when you get to the 6th row, which will be a knit row, you are going to do something different. So we'll just... And then you're going to purl the next row. So we're on row 3. And it's actually a 12-row repeat. It's just the 2 rows are very easy to do, and they're at 6 and row 12. So Everything else is just a regular stocking stitch pattern. So it's a very easy stitch to do, very good for novice. It is going to take you time to get used to actually letting the stitch, you actually, you pull the stitch off the needle and you let it go down 4 rows and then you pick it back up. Can cause problems. You want to make sure that you're really paying attention to the 2 rows that you make the pattern on. As I said, this is row 4, so it's a knit. And then the next row, like I said, will be a purl, and then we will do something a little different. That will change this into a very nice pattern. So, now we purl for 19 stitches. So this one, you're going to knit 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3. Now you're going to drop it 1, 2, 3, 4. Put it back in and knit that stitch. 1, 2, 3. Drop the stitch down 4 bars, just like that. Pick it back up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oop, 3, not 4. Drop it. 4 stitches. And then 1, 2, 3. Drop it, and you should have 3 stitches left. And then knit those 3 stitches. Now you're immediately going to see it do that curling effect, and it's already starting to bubble. So now you're going to do 5 rows of stocking stitch. So you do your 1 row purl, and now and we're just going to, as I said, this is the first row knit. If you are a new subscriber, welcome. I'm grateful to see you. If you are a returning viewer, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming back. I do hope to earn your like and subscription. This row will be knit. It's your second row. Or I should say, it's your 8th row. Then your 9th row will be purl. So here's your 9th row. Your 10th row is knit. Your 11th row will be purl. Pardon me. So this is our 11th row. And then your 12th row. Oh, shoot. This yarn is not the best at frogging. I will own that, but what are you going to do? I'm going to just pause and pull at this knot for a minute, and I will be right back. So I got it untangled, and I've done my 11th row. So what we're going to do now, you're going to do row number 12, and what you do for that is you do 1 stitch. Now you're going to drop 4 on this one, and now you're going to proceed doing 1, 2, 3, drop stitch for 4, go in, 1, 2, 3, drop stitch for 4, 1, 2, 3, and drop the stitch for 4, 1, 2, 3, drop stitch for 4, and then you're going to have 1 stitch. Now you're going to repeat those 12 rows until you have basically your hand. You want to be able to put your hand in fully and deeply, so when it's cold you can bury your hand in the pockets. If it's, you know, even a nice warm summer night and it gets a little cool, you can bury your hands in these nice pockets. So like I said, you want to make sure they're long enough, so as you're going you just kind of measure it against your hand, and when you want to finish, you want to finish in row 6, or that one is going to be row 6 or 5. So row 6 will be here when you add it to the main body. You'll know when you add it, when you're making sure you add it. You want to take those details in. We'll get there when we get to the pockets. So I'm going to finish this pocket because, as you see, still a lot to do. And I will come back when I've got this pocket done, and I'll show you how to start the base of the duster. Back in a second. So I'm almost done this row for the second pocket, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the last row off on a spare needle. That way I can put them aside and not worry about it. I just have to, it's 2 rows past the last bubble stitch row, so whatever row that is for my hands. And I'm just going to knit over all the way over to this side, and then I'm just going to yarn chicken 1. Woohoo! You ever hear someone talk about yarn chicken? That's where they're racing the end of the yarn. I actually won it. I'm happy. So there is my pockets. So there are my 2 pockets. Now what we're going to do is we are going to grab the yarn, because I did frog it. There we go. There's a fine beginning. So now we are going to cast on 220 stitches. So I will show you how to do 10 because I've already shown you the pocket. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so that's, you're going to keep going I'm going to keep going until I have 220 on. 21, I think it is, on there. I will let you know when I get there, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so I have my 221 stitches. I'm now going to do ribbing. Actually, I should only have 220. So I am going to take one off just because I need an even number for ribbing. So now you're going to do knit one in the back, in the front. There's your purl. This can happen when you're starting the project and it's still in the early stages. There we go. So you're going to do that all the way across, and you do this for 3 inches. So you're going to do 3 inches worth of ribbing. So just back and forth, back and forth. Pardon me. And you're just going to keep doing that until, like I said, you have 3 inches. And I will be back when I have my 3 inches. I will see you in a second. Okay, so I do apologize. It has been over 2 months since I've been able to work on this particular project. I did manage to finally get it to the point where I can add the pockets. So we're going to do the math for that right now. I have 220 stitches on. You're going to divide that by 4 because you want it into 4 parts. So that leaves you with 55. Now what you're going to do is you're going to count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. So you're going to minus 19 equals 36. Now you want to divide that by 2. So you do 18. So now what that number, what you want to do is you're going to, now I think I may have to do 19, but that'll just mean when I'm done, I will be, make sure I'm on the right row. Oh, okay. I will be back in just a minute. I have to knit 2 more rows and then I can add them. So I will be back in just a minute and I will add them in just a minute. Okay, so I'm on the right spot now. What you're going to do is you're going to knit, or purl technically, 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Now I am going to finish off. As you can see, I need to go 2 more. So 19 and 20. So this one with the pockets, you have to be very careful. Now I'm going to explain the measurements. I have 220 stitches cast on to my needles. Now we want 4 panels because that's what you're going to work with. So you've got your front left, front right, and front back and front right, or back left and back right. Now the reason you're going to divide that into 4, and that leaves you with 55. Now the amount of stitches that I had on here were 19, so you want to minus 19, and that leaves 36. Now the reason you want to divide this into 2 is simply, well, oops, 19 divided by, or 2 equals basically, oh no wait, it was 36 divided by 2. That's because you need 36 stitches per panel, or 55 stitches per panel, minus the 19, so that'll give you 36. Now with the 36, what you want to do is you want to find where the center of the panel is, which is why you divide it by 2, leaving you with 18. Now, I had to do 21 for the pattern, which is okay, because I'm going to cast off stitches on when I cast on, and I will make sure that they line up as I'm doing it. So now what you're going to do, I'm going to turn off that and move that out of our way. So now I'm going to start by decreasing. So now we're going to decrease 19 stitches. So 1, 2, 5, oops, there, so that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 puts it right where you want it to be. And I'll show you on the other side how I know that, because you want each one to start and finish with those. You notice the divots there, the pattern bubbles. There's one stitch that you want to be on at the beginning and the end of the stitch. Now you're going to go all the way over, and what I'd like to do here, I'm just going to put a couple more on, just to give me a bit of room to work. And then I'm going to go over here. Now I'm going to do, I think I said 20, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and then I did 19, so 2, so oops, let's do that again, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 14, 16, 18, now 20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 there. I think I have to go over 20, but that's okay, to get it at the start of it. So I'm going to put that right in there. So now I know where I can start casting off from, and then you cast off your 19, and then you finish the row. So I'm just going to finish this row off, and when I come back I will show you the next row, because you've seen how to cast off. You know to cast off the next 19 when you get to it, and when I come back I will show you how to put the pocket on and how to sew it in. So I will be back in a second to do that. Okay, so I'm on the next row, and you're going to knit all the way over to that first stitch, or to that first cast off stitch, I should say, sorry. And I do apologize, it has been a little while since I've been on. I've been working on other projects, I've been doing a whole lot of other things. If I do repeat something in here, I do apologize. I'm sorry to repeat it. I'm sure my regular viewers, and if you are, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. They probably are getting tired of me repeating some of this stuff, but if you are a new viewer, I do appreciate that too. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. So what we're going to do for this one is we are going to knit 2 together, simply because you have to have a one first stitch before you do the pattern, and then you're just going to knit all the way across. And you just want to knit it off the secondary needle. And I did my best to line this up as best as possible. It's not perfect for this yarn, but the way the pattern is, you have to deal with kind of, I was either going to be too soon or too far into it, so I figured. Now, when you get to the last one, you're going to knit those 2 together as well. And then you're going to pick up this row, and you're on the right stitch. So you're going to knit about 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll do 7. Now stretch that out as much as possible, putting your stitch protectors, needle point protectors back on. Grab your stitch marker. You're going to want to go in there. Now you're going to turn your work, and we'll I like to do is I like to have my work when I sew it on like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this here. Actually, I'm going to grab another strand. But what I'm going to do is I will find the one end. And this is a great way to handle when you need to get a thread. So grab your secondary end if you can find it. Just have to find it here. Where are you? There we go. Okay. I'm just going to put the lid back on just so it makes it simple for me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim, probably not as much as I have off here, but I will trim here. And honestly, I'm doing this color change because I don't think that, where did my needle go? Where did I lose my needle? Well, I will grab a secondary one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sewing it on. But what I want to do, I'm going to show you, is I'm going to start with it. I'm going to tie here off, and that way. And the reason I changed the color is just because I think the blue will stand out very, very obviously on the other side. So I wanted a color that would blend in a little more. And now what you're going to do is you're going to just sew down the line. And just try and stitch as best you can all the way down. As I said, just get your tail out of the way. And you just kind of go back and forth sewing the pocket in. And that way you don't have to worry about it. It will be sewn in. And I use this for my next measurement. Because what I like to do is I like to put my hand in the pocket when I'm making it, and I do it to just a little bit above measure it to just above my elbow for when I start the next, the armhole sleeves. You need to make sure you have a gap, and that I did. So I will work now on basic stitching, the basic stitch, until I can get enough of it done so that I can fill the gap, to get the armhole gap. So that will be the next stage after I'm done sewing in the pockets. And the pockets are pretty important for that, because then you get a proper measurement on your own body, as opposed to, you know, if you just think you're getting it, you may not be getting an accurate measurement. So it is always good to sew the pocket in. That way you know exactly where it is on your arm, and from there you can make the proper measurement for yourself. So we're just going to, as I said, continue sewing in this pocket. And then we're going to work all the way over and do the same thing on, actually, I don't work on the same row for the next pocket. I will finish this row off, and then I will sew it in on the other side, and I'll show you why when I get there. Oops, there we go. You just want to keep making sure you don't get your needle stuck, your thread stuck on your needle, and you just keep working your way down, sewing it up, making sure it's all stitched in, because you want to make sure you have a good secure pocket. And I really don't make any cardigan or that duster or whatever without a pocket, because many women's clothes do not have pockets. It's extremely frustrating when you use pockets. I don't like to use a purse all the time. I like pockets. So for me, it's extremely frustrating. And I always, I have for so long made pockets so that I can put a lighter if I need a lighter, or if I'm, pardon me, dealing with You know, if you've got nails and you're trying to nail something in, you put nails in your pocket, all kinds of stuff like that. And I'm sure there's people out there that would argue that, but I do like to use pockets. So and then you're just going to sew the bottom line. And I like to use the needle point protectors at this point because that way you know you're not going to lose a stitch while you're sewing. And that can help you a whole lot. Now you always want to make sure you, follow the line, proper line here that you want to sew on. You don't want your pocket uneven, so you want to just try to keep to the same line. It is a little tricky, but it is doable. The nice part is if you do not make it 100% flat, flush, get it. It is in the back. That's why I like doing this particular pocket style and design. That way you don't see the stitches too much in the front. You'll see a little bit of, I don't want to say, of pulling from the stitches because you will have that due to the fact that you're sewing it in. So you're just trying to grab that little bar. I don't know if you can see here. I have a little bar here that I've got my needle in front of, and you just put it in, and you grab the two on the pocket end. And hopefully, if you can do that well enough, I'm still navigating it, but see, I go back, and that same row, I go in and I insert it under the bar. But that way you hopefully won't see the color change on the other side. Not that this is a big deal because I am currently in the orange section, but you never want to see the stitches. Now, I can do that this particular way of doing it. So if you notice, I've looped it, will lock your stitches in place. Therefore, you can change direction like I just did, or you can just make sure it's locked into place so that way when you pull, it doesn't go any further than where you've locked it, allowing you to not have a bunched up seam, which can happen if you're not careful. So we're going to get this pocket sewn into place, and then I will adjust here in a second because I don't like to, I very much like sewing up in a different way. I'll show you in a second. So now I've done that, I will turn my work, making sure I keep the working yarn out of the way. And then now I can grab it with this hand, and it will go a whole lot smoother as I sew it up into place. And as I said, I'm just grabbing the back of the loop bar and tightening up. So once we get that into place, and then you can come here, grab right here. And just like I said, you just want to make sure you're trying to get it into place as easy as possible. There we go. And then you're just going to keep grabbing those bars, ensuring that what you're doing is sewing this side of the pocket in. I do find it's a lot easier when you're closer to the end, which is exactly why I like to. Now, that's the one problem with this yarn. It is a bit more fuzzier than it is a nice light yarn, but it is a fuzzier yarn. So it has a frizz to it, which means it will grab. So this is probably not a project I will ever frog because this would be a nightmare to frog. But I can only imagine what frogging this yarn would be like with crochet work. I don't think you'd want to. It would be a nightmare because it would be constantly catching and pulling and making work hard to deal with. And if you notice there, I gave it a quick tug down to make sure I'm not too tight anywhere, so the pocket is not bunched in any way. Like I said, just keep grabbing these back loops and the two loops on the side and then the back loop. keep right going up and up and up. Now I will have plenty of string on this one for the next pocket, but I am going to, when I'm done this seam, I'm then going to darn in all the ends and trim the yarn. And I'm almost there. Just on the last row here, I'm going to grab those, and that should be. Now you can always, and as you see, I pulled it down again just in case I had a bunching effect. We're going to lock a stitch in place there. Now what I'll do is I will take that stitch marker out and I will put my hand in the pocket. And a little awkward on camera, making sure that it is all seamed in. It's pretty good. So now I'm going to darn these ends in. So I'm going to finish this row off, purling all the way across. I will come back at the start of the next row so I can show you how I do the next row, because this is just straight. Or actually, I'll show you how, well, no, I showed you how to add this pocket, so you should be able to add the next pocket. You're going to add it the same, but you're not going to sew it in. So you're just going to add the stitches. So maybe I will stay and I will show you how to do that. I'm really wondering where that needle went. Huh. So I will grab a secondary one because I have so much on that end. And then you're just going to darn this side in, allowing, just follow some of your stitches, pull it through, and there's that. So you should be able to trim that off now. And then I can do the same to this one. And this one will just darn off. And then we're going to purl all the way over to the next row, to the next pocket. And then I will be able to show you just what it's like if you don't darn the pocket in. However, we'll be darning it in on the next row. So there's that. Trim that one. Get that off there. Put that back. So now we'll have my working yarn that I was using. I will put that aside. Same with this. So now you have one pocket sewn in. And now you're just going to work all the way over to the next row. Oh, I guess we're knitting, not purling. All the way up, see here. Which, don't worry, that does happen. You do get hairs worked in. Sometimes you can't help it. I try to pull it out. There is an old Turkish adage that says you knit a part of yourself into everything you do. I like to take it as that's what you're doing. You're knitting yourself into a project by purpose or accident. So we are just going to keep going over and just keep knitting over to the next hole. And then, like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just straight add the pocket. So just knit two together for the start. I like to collect the stitches now that I know aren't going to be worked or have to be worked before the pocket stitch. So actually I would like to show you how, as we said, you don't really see any. There's one right there where I trimmed off the yarn, but other than that you really don't see any of the blue, which is what I was hoping for. You do see the blue behind it, but you were going to have a pocket. There's not much you can do. You're going to have a pocket that's full of one color or the other. So this way, you have the one color at the back. Happens to be my favorite color of this yarn. So, I'm just going to keep working all the way over to, like I said, the empty space. Well, the one stitch before the empty space, technically. Because, like I said, you're going to knit off, or knit two together on the first one. And the nice part here is you are no longer now using a spare needle. You don't have a spare needle. All your work is in one place now. It will be worked all in one place now until the end. So that's the nice part about that. My yarn, so it's easier so I can get it from it. I'm gonna have to take that up at the end when I'm done filming. Roll up the end that I pulled off. And I have been having this project on the go for about 3 months. Not that it's taken that long. I've only actually worked on it probably for 7 days at this point. Unfortunately, I was very sick there for a week, and then I've been working on R&D and stuff. So currently, I'm just getting back to it so I can finish it off so I can start the next big project. So, like I said, it didn't take me 2 months to get to this point. It's only taken me about a week. I started it about last week, not the full project. I had a little bit started, but I've been working on it. If you watch my daily updates, you'll know that. I did want to say I would love to get your like and subscribe. I'd love to hear from you any questions, comments, or concerns below. Even if you just want to say hi, how's it going? If you were interested in what I do daily updates Monday, Wednesday, Friday to let you know. That's how you'll see the progress of how I'm actually working. You'll see it in those. My Tuesdays, Thursdays, and now Sundays, I upload project videos. So I would love to hear from you. I absolutely adore hearing from my viewers. It's the highlight of my day. So as you can see, we're now over to the open space. We're not going to knit that last one because, like I said, we are going to knit 2 together here. So I'm going to put this needle right here, and then I'm going to put it there. So you have both stitches now on one needle. So I'm going to take that out of here. Oh, no. Take that needle out of here. So knit, and then you're just going to knit all the way across. As you can see, the yarns aren't quite perfect, but it didn't want to keep going farther in case I was going to go too far on the length of this. So I think I can live with the way it is. And when you get to something like that, you want to keep it at the back. Now your last stitch, as I said, goes onto this needle. So you're going to knit. Then this one, you're going to knit these 2 together. And then you're just going to knit to the end of the row. Now, we're going to finish this off. As I said, we finished this row off so that I can flip it. I'm going to purl past about 5-6 stitches past the pocket, and then I will sew it in. It's so that when I'm grabbing it, my hand's very close to the edge. It makes it a lot easier as opposed to when you're trying to do it near the end. So then turn, and that's how it looks like if you don't sew it in. I do like to sew them in, so I'm just going to, like I said, go this far. And we're just going to purl all the way over to about, like I said, 5 to 7 stitches past. That just gives you a really good number to get past it so it's not right on the edge. We're in the pocket there. And now you're going to want to be careful when you add the next set of bubbles. You're going to want to make sure they all line up. I'm pretty sure I've got it all lined up now, so it should just seamlessly line up now. You just want to make sure they're in the right place. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then I'm going to put the stitch mark protectors or needle point protectors back on. I'm going to fold it around and we'll start with this yarn again. I could do the blue, but I'm going to stick with the continuity of doing the orange. I'm okay with the orange. And yet again, you're going to tie this up so that way I'll jam through. So now turn my work again so I can work at this end and not have a big bunch of bulk in my way for the way I hold it. Now always make sure your working end is out of the way because you do not want to work that end by accident. So get it out of the way. So there we go. Now I'm going to do exactly what I did for the last pocket and just sew it in. And you just keep grabbing the bar. And it's just going to, oh, I did forget one thing that is actually very, very important. There it is. So you can do this without actually attaching. No idea. Alright, so I'm going to grab another one. You can do this without attaching the pocket like this with a stitch marker. However, I do find that this will allow you to get a much more proper measurement. It's not going to pull down on you, so you're not going to have a pull on the pocket. That'll keep it level with where you want it level, so it just gives it a bit nicer of a finish, I do find. So I am a fan of doing that. Pull. Like I said, just give it a little pull after you've done a couple of them, just so you don't have a bunch of bunching up with the pocket, because you really don't want bunching. You want the pocket to be nice and full. You don't want anything bulging out. You want to be able to get your hand full in there if it's colder. So, and just keep going down as in straight a line as you can, allowing yourself to just keeping it straight, keeping it sturdy, keeping it from being a problem. So you're just going to keep, don't like the placement of that one, but what I'm going to do is pull up a bit, go through there, and that'll make that stitch a lot nicer. There we go. There we go. And as I said, just keep going around and around. Now it should be just straight pattern. Since I don't think you need to see me sew the entire pocket in, because I showed you the other pocket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure how much I'm going to do, just in case you want that measurement. Now, I can do it this way too. This is another way to sew, because I'm at the bottom. I want a straight line, so it helps me if it's in line with where I'm sewing. And then you just line up the stitches on the same exact row that you're grabbing from, and you sew it all up. There we go. You just keep sewing them in. Oh, that was my bad. I'm sorry. I did not know I moved it. I am so sorry. So there we go. Just pull it out again. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to take a measurement. So what I like to do is go to, about 14 inches from about there. So about 13 and a half, 14 inches. So that will be what you do next to. So you're going to be doing 13 and a half to 14 inches. for the next stage, and I will come back when I've got that to show you how we do the front panels. So I will be back for you in a minute. For me, who knows how long, hopefully only a day or so, and I will show you the next stage to be done. I'll be back in a minute. Alright, so I did get the in between the panels. I just have to get my calculator out. So I need to double into the panel. So we had 220 for stitches. We're going to divide that into 4 equals 55 stitches. So now I'm going to take 55 stitches, and the 220 is the, as I said earlier, the amount of stitches I cast on. So you're going to work 55 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I am going to do the 6th one because that puts me where I need it to be. So I'm going to double check that count. 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 32, 46, 42, 44, 46, 48, 52, 46. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a stitch marker in here. I like to put on the needle point protectors. I'll grab a 2nd stitch marker, and now I will count down 60 stitches on this side. 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 14, 16, 32, 34, 36, 38, 42, 44, 46, 48, 52, 46. And I'm going to put the stitch marker right there. And then you're going to do 10 inches of pattern on this set. You're going to then cast on a stitch here and a stitch here. Do 10 inches on this side pattern. Then you're going to do 10 inches of this side. Once you get the first one, you can use this one as your guide. So make sure you get a good measurement for the first one. Another way to measure it is put your hand in the pocket now. Work it up to your shoulder. So up top of your shoulder, you want it to be the top of your shoulder, no stretching, and you work straight to it. So I'm going to do that, and I will come back when I have 10 inches on each panel. And then I will show you how to stitch it up, and we'll do the border, and we should be done. So that's that. I hope to, I don't know if I've said this before. If I have, I do apologize. I do hope to hear from you in a like, comment, or your like, subscription, or comments. I love any question, comments, or concerns in the comment section below, even if it's just to say hi. I will be back to show you how to, like I said, finish off sewing up because that's all that'll need to be done once you've patterned up another 10 inches on each panel. So I will be back and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so we finished the 3 panels. As you can see, there's one there. It's 10 inches. And the other one's right here. So I'm just, oh, there it is. So there's the other one. So I am going to that's so weird. Just doubling so I have the right size. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how to cast off, because I haven't done that in this video yet, and I do like to try and show people how to do everything. I didn't need to add on any stitches. So casting off, you're going to wrap around your needle, and you're going to pull off. And you do the same thing with this. Pull off, and then go through both. Now you're going to do that all the way along, and then you're going to stitch up the seams, and then before I show you how to stitch up the seams, we will cast on 15 stitches on the needle, because that'll be the border. So right now we're just casting off, and you're just going to keep doing this all the way along. And I do like to do it with a crochet hook, especially on a seam that is going to be stretched, especially with your shoulders or that. This will give you just a little bit more elasticity to the stitch, to the seam, allowing it to fit just a little bit nicer. So I do recommend doing this, even if it was fingerless gloves, I wouldn't be too worried. But because it's a sweater or a duster, a cardigan, you really want to make sure that shoulder seam isn't too tight on you. It will affect how the garment lays and how it feels on you. And you're just going to, as I said, continue putting your hook in, wrap it around, and you run it through both the loops. So you go in, wrap around, pull through, wrap around again, and pull through all the loops. And you're just going to finish that off. And as I said, this is the last one, so you're just going to stitch the seaming up now. And we're just going to do 15 stitches, 16 I think is, I want an even number, so it'll be 16, not 15, on the needles. And you're going to do a ribbing, just like you did for the very beginning of this, and the seams for the sleeves. And we have to do the sleeves as well. So once I get this, I actually will do the border first, and then I'll probably do the sleeves. And with the sleeves, oh, actually maybe I'll do the sleeves first. And what you want to do is once you get it all sewn up, you're going to count the stitches that go around the edge, and you're going to cast on that many stitches on the straight needles. So I'll do that in just a second. And actually, because they're sleeves, I will cast on a 4mm needle instead of the 4.5 I'm working with, just to give you a little bit of a tighter ribbing on the sleeves. So once you're done the ribbing, though, you'll switch up to the larger needle, and you'll start the pattern just like you did for the back or anything else, so that you can go back to the beginning of the video and see how I cast on. And I did the beginning. It's not hard. We're almost done with these seam stitches. For some reason, they're not moving smoothly on my needle today. They actually usually do. And of course, I keep dropping a stitch off the needle. But that. Oh, there must be something up here that's catching. Yeah, there's just a little tiny bump up here. And if you look at one of my newer videos, or my first videos, I have some tips and tricks to deal with. Don't have any out right now, so I will have to do that later. But if you have a nail file, you can file it down. And then I recommend a nail buffing pad that you can get at the dollar store. I have 4 different settings on it. And what you do is you buff down what you've nail filed down. So I'll show you in just a second since I have a chance. I just want to get them all cast off. It'll make it work so much easier if I can just cast them off here. Oh, goodness. It is not cooperating today. See if that's a little better. And you just, as I said, you just keep casting off, ensuring that you do not have any stitches left on the needle. And then, as I said, I'm going to stitch up the seam very quickly. And I just wanted to show you something once I finish the stitches. Pull it through length for the seam. There we go. Pull it out this way. Now, I did want to say when casting on, or when like adding on for the bag, what you want to do is you want to stop at the drop stitch. The drop stitch will always be your first. Actually, that one's the second stitch, because here you want that the second stitch. If you're casting on here and you've got 3 stitches, actually, yeah, I think I did have to take this 1 stitch down or add a stitch, I'm not sure, right here, because as you can see, I was on that, which if the next add-on row is the 3 and then, you're fine, but if it's not, then you want to make sure there's 1 stitch here, which I've done that before. You do the same thing with pockets. You make sure everything lines up. And then, as I said, we're going to line up the seam right now. So there's the 2 seams together. And you just want to grab your thread, darn your needle. And I have shown this in other videos, but I do like to show especially the seaming and the casting off, just in case someone's new. That way you can see how it's done. So I'm not saying, oh, just go watch another video. And you just keep adding the 4 loops. You'll have 4 loops at the top, and you just want to keep going across all 4 loops. And as I said, that's a bit of paint. So you just grab all 4 loops, and you just keep weaving in between the 4 loops. And that's how you get your nice seam done. And then what you're going to do is you're going to count here each bar. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, the best thing to do is count in between each one. So there's a stitch there and there's a stitch there. You want to grab 1, 2, 3. The one in between each one. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So we could say 40 stitches. I am going to make sure it fits, because if it doesn't, this is the time. Oh, actually, that's really tight. So because it is still really tight, I am going to add an extra 4 or 5 rows, just because I know that it won't fit nicely if I don't. So when I come back, I will show you how to sew up the sleeves. I'll show you how to do the sleeve, how to sew them up and sew them on. So when I come back, as I said, I'll show you how to do the seam, how to sew up the seams. Or actually, that's what I just showed you how to do, is how to sew up the seams. I really feel like I didn't do it tall enough. And like that first one, I did this is one thing about this. You really want to be careful when you're measuring. I have had this happen multiple times. As you can see, I'm not as far as I should be. So I'm going to finish this off, make this better, get this all up where I need it to be. And then, as I said, the stitches on the sleeve should be about 50 to 60. So I'm going to cast on 60 stitches in fours on these. And as I said, if you want, go back to the beginning of the video. It can show you how to cast on again, and you're going to cast on about 50, probably 57 or 59. And then you're just going to pattern for about 14 inches, cast off, and then I'll show you how to sew that up, and I will be back. Alright, so I just finished the first sleeve, and I have about 1.5 inches in the border. So I have cast on. I've shown how to do that. I'm not sure I need to keep showing that all the time. Oh, pardon me. So you're going to do ribbing, and you're going to do knit one, purl one for 1.5 inches on this with size 4mm needles. And you're, like I said, you're going to do 1.5 inches of that. And then I ended up doing 15 inches from the border to the end of the sleeve. So for right now, we're going to knit one, purl one for 1.5 inches, just like this. So I'm going to finish that, and I will come back when I have my border, because you're just going to continue the 1.5 inches on 44 stitches. And I will come back when I'm done that, and I will start the pattern again, and I'll show you how to do it. And then you're going to, like I said, do 15 inches of that, and then you sew up the seam, and you sew it in. It's very, very simple. You just sew the stitches all in together. So I'm going to finish this, and then I will show you how to do the border. Now, I'm not going to show you how to sew in the sleeves and that. I've shown that on other videos, so if you are interested, I have 2 other duster videos. You can see the process of how to sew it in all in there. So, like I said, I'm going to continue on this, and I will be back when I've had the 1.5 inches of the border. So I'll be back in a minute. Alright, so I just finished starting the second sleeve. I wanted to show you how I started it, in the sense of I cast on 44 stitches. I have, this is, you know, you make your size for your, here, let me turn the light on. You make the size that you want, which I wanted was 1.5 inches, so I did 1.5 inches. Now that I've done that of ribbing, now I'm going to, on 4.5mm needles, I'm going to then take the needle, and now I'm going to just knit off. And I'm pretty sure I need to take off 1 stitch, but I'm going to wait until the first dropped row to know if I have to or not. So you're just going to keep knitting. So what you want to do is you want to knit and purl. Actually, this is supposed to be purl. Darn it. So I gotta go back. This is actually supposed to be a purl row. This is how this pattern does start. You can start on knit, but it does mess the count for the first row up. So it just means you'll only have 4 rows, not 5, before you start the drop stitch. I like to have the 5 rows, so you're going to purl this row, and then you're going to knit the next row, and you're going to do that for 5 rows. So I'm going to show you a few more stitches on this row. I'll pause it, show you 3 more stitches of knit, just so you make sure you remember, and then I'll come back when we are to do the drop stitch row, so then row 6. So I'll be back in just a sec. Okay, so now you make sure you change to the 4.5mm needle, and now you're going to knit. 1, 2, just like that. And you're just going to do that all the way across the row. Now you're going to do this for 5 rows, and then I said we'll come back for row number 6. So here's my 5 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you have 5 rows there. Bring that up to the camera so you can see them all. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to knit 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to drop a stitch down 4 bars. I like to drop it down the 3rd, grab the 4th loop. The 4th bar will usually end up coming down. Oh, this yarn is so fuzzy. 1, 2, 3. You knit 3 more, and you drop down 4 bars. That is the pattern for this row. So I'm going to finish that off, and then I'm going to stocking stitch for another 5 rows. So you knit and you purl for another 5 more rows, and I will show you what that looks like, and I will show you row 12 in a minute. So as I said, I'm down to the last 4 stitches. I will have to decrease 1. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, and then knit these 2 together. Oops. So knit these 2 together, and then I have the right number of stitches. Now, like I said, I'm going to stocking stitch, so purl 1, knit 1 for 5 rows, and then we'll start row 12. Okay, so here's my 5 rows. You'll see that that's the drop stitch row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 rows. So we have a total of 11 rows right now. And now I'm going to knit 1, and then you drop this 2nd stitch. 3 and 4. This is always the harder of the two drop stitch rows because you do it right off the bat. 1, 2, 3, and then you can always check. There's the 2 drop stitches. There's that, and you are in the right spot. So go down 4, and there you go. That is what you're going to do now for 15 inches. So 1, 2, 3, and then drop the next one. I will be back when I've done doing this, and I will show you how I will cast on, and I will do the border. So I will be back in a minute, and then I will show you how to do the border, and then we should be done. See you in a minute. Alright, so you can see I have both my sleeves here. I'm just going to show you how to quickly sew them up. You want to start at the ribbed end. You're going to undo this knot that you started with. So this is your starting end. And what you want to do, get on the needle, and then you're going to grab, there's a couple of loops here, and I'm going to grab a couple of loops there. And you're just going to keep working that up on the seam. That's your seam. You just grab a couple of loops and a couple of loops. And you're just going to keep going down the seam. I'm not going to show you too much of this. A lot of times I like to grab just the 1 loop, but you can grab the 2 loops if you just want to make sure there's good. But if you only grab the 1, that'll work too. A lot of times I just grab the 1. And you want to make sure you don't pull your thread too tight, because otherwise you'll start pulling that in. See how much I was able to pull back out. And you're going to want to, I like to go a little bit farther down the sleeve, just so that it gives you a little bit of space and area to work with. Now, double back here. After you got to pull, and that should keep you from too tightening. Now, this is your next spot where you'll have to be careful you don't over tighten, and you just want to keep going this way. So you get a little bit of stitches built up, and then you double back a bit, and that will for lack of a better term, lock your stitches in place, so that way you don't pull too tight on your sleeve and your sleeve's all bunched up on you. I'm going to put it on pause, and I'm going to finish up sewing up both these sleeves, and then I'll show you just how I attach them. It's pretty much the same thing, but just in case you're worried, I'll show you how to do that. And then I just have to cast on, I think it's 16 stitches for the border. So do the border and ribbing, and then sew it on, and we're done. So I'm getting very close to having this one done. Very excited about that. It's been a project's been on the go for about 3 months now. So not all of it working on it, but it did get about a month where it got put on the back burner. And hello, Willow. This is another way you can lock the stitch into place, where I've wrapped the loop around my working thread. And it's another way it locks it in, so you don't have to worry about pulling too tight. So there's 2 ways to do it. I showed you both ways, and I will be back in a minute to show you how to sew it into the main duster. Back in a second. So I wanted to give a quick tip about how I hold the seam once I get closer to this edge. I'll hold it my one end. Obviously, if you're right-handed, you'll be holding it in this hand. And that way, I hold it just so that the seam is together as I'm sewing up. And you do want to do this when you get about, when you can hold, so you can do it about there. And then you just keep trying to make sure you don't have it uneven. And you hold it just as even as you can with your fingers, working your way down the stitches, hoping, which I think I have enough, pardon me, to just stitch it closed. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the duster, and I'm going to start sewing in the sleeves. So my final stitch will be one of those wraparound stitches, and if your yarn is too short, you can wrap it around, pull it back on, and you can get the same effect if you don't have enough yarn there. So now I'm going to grab the body of the duster, and where it'll help here is the stitch marker, and then you can always grab a second stitch marker and hold it at the top. So, oops, so there you go. You've got it stitched in at the bottom and at the top. And now, I know that's not a very long one, so I'm not going to worry about it yet. I'm going to take this one that's all wrapped up, unwind it, darn it up. So you have your hand, darned needle, and this is where you want to start. So you just start working around the edge. You just want to try and grab the tighter stitches, and you just go back and forth like you did with the sleeve, building up a little bit of stitches, and then when you have some built up, and by keeping that there, you kind of open it up, hold it together. Now you can just use double pointed needles and work your way down. I hate the way it looks. You know that you've done that, and with a pattern like this where I've worked this way, I don't want to do that with the sleeves. It really does make it, if you're doing a stocking stitch, it can get away with it because that can be versatile. But when you're working on sleeves that the pattern really does show direction, and this one I think does, that you want to make sure you so there I have a little bit. Now what I'll do, wrap around, and then you pull, and there you go. Work this side, and then if you need to do that, where you can see I have to just get a little bit worked in, because there's just a little bit of a loop here. You go down a row and go through the same stitches. There we go. Come over, grab that one, and go through the same stitch. And that way, what you're doing is tightening it up so that you don't have a big bulge here saying, oh, I didn't pull them full enough or whatever. A lot of times that can save you a lot of work if you just kind of work it in as you're working. So I'm going to come back when I'm finished sewing up the sleeves, or sewing in the sleeves, I mean, and I will show you how to cast on the, actually, how would I do that now? Instead of finishing this off, I can do that in a minute. So I'm going to use 4 millimeters. Where is that camera? There's my 4 millimeter arrows. So now I need, that'll work. Now this one's going to take me a second to find the end. It's in here somewhere. No. This sometimes can be a problem. You're looking for an end. There you are. And now you do want a tail. As I've said, you're going to be sewing this up. So you do want to give yourself a bit of a tail. You'll probably need more, but we should start with a bit of a tail. I like to tighten it up. Make my slip knot. And now I'm going to cast my 16 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, and then number 16 goes over the middle, just like that. And I'll just come down a bit, and we'll try that again, because I didn't realize you couldn't see it. So, there's my slip knot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 goes over the needle. So there's your 16 stitches. Now what you want to do, I have yarn all over this table, clean up a little bit, and you're going to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. Now this is a 1 row repeat. You are just going to repeat knit 1, purl 1 until you have, I think it's 124 inches. This is why I'm saying you're going to be doing it for probably a full day, and it's going to take some time, and you're going to want to sew it in as you go. So I'll probably show how I start to sew it in as I go, which is pretty much the same as sewing the sleeves. But in case you're worried and you don't think you can do it, you can. And there's the first row of my 16 stitches. And now this one just starts with knit. So I'll be back when I have probably a good portion of this border done and show you how it stitches on. I will be back in a minute. Alright, so I've gotten a good portion of this border done, so I thought it would be a good time to sew on and show you how I do that. So what I want to do is that's how we're going to do it. So I'm going to pull this one up and through. So I don't want the knot on this side then. So just pull it through, make sure it's on the side you don't want seen. Then you're going to grab the two edges that you're going to sew together, and you will always need more thread no matter how much you have left yourself here. If you do hear something, I do apologize. There's construction going on. I hope it's quiet enough that you don't hear it, but I can't help that inside. And you're just going to sew this up. And then you go back and you sew it up to where your needles are, because you probably didn't finish it off. I've yet to actually have one be long enough that I didn't have to still sew something on. So you just want to keep sewing up. And you just keep going this way. When I come back, I will show you what it looks like finished on the mannequin, and we will be done. So I will be back in a minute, and I will show you what it looks like finished. So as you can see, as I said, the next one would be me finishing it off. So I do have it all done. I'm just going to go around and show it from the back. So there it is from the back. Got it nice and done. I'm very happy to be done it. Just a little bit better light. And so thank you very much for coming, and I hope to see you again. Bye.